Court is now in session.
All rise. This is Order in the Court, an inside look into college basketball on the West Coast with veteran announcer Ted Robinson and the Pac-12's all-time leading scorer Don MacLean. So please be seated. Order in the Court. Here now are Ted and Don.
Hi, everybody. We are in session for another week of Order in the Court. And Don MacLean, we're in that time of the year. We've spun into the back half of February where hopes and dreams are becoming reality for some, distant for others. I think the two Pac-12 schools would fall into that latter category, particularly with Oregon State having a really rough loss. Apparently a very bad weather night, tough travel night, but they went up to Portland, got beat last Thursday. Washington State got hammered in the second half of their game in Moraga by the conference leaders in St. Mary's. So right now, Dom, one thing I sit there thinking, okay, these teams, of course, they have the hope, which Oregon State lived a few years ago in the Pac-12 of running the table in the tournament. They'll both schools will have that more difficult to do in the WCC structure. Oregon State, though, I looked this up. They have 18 wins by beating Pacific Saturday. 18 wins. Oregon State in the last 35 years, they've won 20 games twice.
Wow.
Twice. Craig Robinson did it one year, and Wayne Tinkle did it the year they ran the table and then made it to the Elite Eight. Only because they had that run did they get to 20 wins. So this Beaver team has a good chance to end up at 20. So you give the historical context, that's significant.
Yeah. Well, first off, Ted, I got jealous the last couple of weeks of you breaking out all your Oregon State and Washington State gear. And since I don't have any, I decided I would go with West Virginia for Trent McClain.
He's a West Virginia dad.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. But look, Ted, Oregon State's had a really good year based on what's happened the last couple of years and what's happened in the conference and all the uncertainty and all the stuff that's gone on. They have had a very good year. And I do think, and we've said this repeatedly week after week, they're probably not going to get an at-large bid, but I think they're good enough that if they get hot, they could run the table in that WCC tournament. And I do think these last 4 or 5 games, whatever they have left, is important for them for that seeding. If they get the right seed, they're probably not going to get the 1 or 2, but if they can get into that top 4 potentially, then you give yourself a better chance. But I do think there's a lot to be, I guess, proud of if you're Oregon State based on all the stuff that's happened. But they still got a lot of season left to go. And I think that if I know Wayne, he is telling them we have to keep playing, we have to keep getting better. And I've done it before. I did it in the Pac-12, and I've ran the table. I know how to do it. So let's gear up and do it.
To Don MacLean's story time.
So on the heels of you talking about UCLA earlier, one story that was told various times on different shows. So my freshman year, Sean Elliott was a senior, and they were very good, 1988. I think they got upset in the NCAA tournament early, but they were good, like top 5 in the country all year. That was Sean Elliott, Steve Kerr, Judd Bushler, all those guys. And so we had gotten off to a decent start. We were pretty good. And so we go to – I'd never been to McHale and didn't really – I'd heard, but I didn't know. And so we go in there. I forget what our record was. We were decent, though. We weren't bad. We were upper level of the conference, Pac-10 back then. And Sean Elliott was about to break Kareem's conference scoring record, or he was close. And he needed something like 29 or 30 to break it. And so we go in there, Ted, and they smoked us by 40. And he got 35. And he got the record, and it was a whole thing. And I couldn't believe it. Like the McHale Center overwhelmed me. That was one of my worst games as a college player. And so fast forward to when we played them late in the year. I think it was the last weekend of the regular season we played them. And there had been some talk back and forth in that first game, which continued into the second game, especially between me and Sean. And so in the second half, he's at the free throw line. I'm on the lane line, getting ready to rebound, and we were still going back and forth. And it was weird because it was loud. It was UCLA, Arizona, and it was a close game. We lost that game by 3, but it was loud in there. And the weirdest thing happened. during that free throw, it got really quiet. And I said really loud, I'm going to break every one of your bleeping records. And people courtside heard it. They heard it. And specifically somebody at Fox heard it, somebody that worked at Fox. And so the story kind of got out that I said that. And so, everybody, all the cocky MacLean said he's going to break Elliott's record. Guess what? Broke Elliott's record.
Mm-hmm. Did Lute Olson hear you say that?
Lute Olson did not hear me say that, but it's just interesting that other people heard. Like, no one ever hears what people say when they're talking to each other during the game. Like, they're talking because you can see their head gestures or whatever, but nobody ever hears. But I'll never forget it. When somebody told me that they heard that and they had told other people that I said that, I remember back to it and I'm like, the arena got weirdly quiet for like 5 seconds, and it was exactly when I said that. And so people heard it. So
and at McHale, when has it ever been that quiet at McHale?
Well, this one was in Pauley. It was the second game.
Oh, this was at Pauley.
Yeah. So the second game, which was a close game, and by the way, there was obviously very good players and different players during my era of my 4 years at UCLA. And I've told him this because we did a couple things together long after UCLA and Arizona. Sean Elliott was the best player I ever played against in college.
Huh?
He was, because he was my position. Like, Shaq was in my era, but I never guarded Shaq. I would never guard him. But Sean Elliott was the best player that I ever played against in college. And so the fact that he did that, the first game, broke Kareem's record, told him I was going to, and then did it. To me, and I hate talking about myself, you know that, Ted, but I just thought a pretty cool story to share as we're talking about conference realignment in UCLA and Arizona, which, by the way, it's disappointing. And look, I give Mick and Tommy Lloyd credit for continuing the series, but that game's never going to be the same because it doesn't have the same ramifications. It just doesn't. I think it's great that they're going to play, and they played this year in Phoenix, but it's not the same, that UCLA and Arizona not being in the same conference.
Don, I did the Oregon State basketball game back in November, same exact feeling. It was terrific atmosphere, all that, but it wasn't the same November non-conference game. Have you ever talked to Sean about this story in the years since?
I have, and we talked. He knew about it, and I forget what his response was. We did a radio show or I forget what we did, but we were on something together. I think it was a podcast, actually. And I told him, he knew the story, but I kind of retold it. And then he said his thoughts. And I said what I just said to you, the best player I ever played against in college. And I think he welcomed that compliment because it's the truth. You know me, Ted. I don't say anything that I don't believe in or isn't the truth. So pretty cool.
So I love hearing you say that, Don. One of my dictionary definitions of inexplicable, Sean Elliott being left off the 1988 Olympic basketball team.
Yeah.
Given what you just said. Yeah. Inexplicable. Yeah. And a second pack player, Todd Lichty at Stanford, also the same. Left off the Olympic team. Yeah. And as a result, the Dream Team was created for 1992.
That's right.
That was the reason. All right. Hey, Washington State gets a big chance this week. Gonzaga at home. So it'll be great for them to have it at Pullman and another chance to put a good, bright stamp on the end of the season for the Cougs. And so we'll talk about it all next week when you join you once again for Order in the Court.